Greetings everyone, I am Sister Lily and welcome to my armory. So, we are back this week with another White Dwarf retrospective. So, this issue was released back in June 2012, as you can probably see on the cover, and was about flyers. Most notably the Storm Talon gunship, the various versions of the Orc fighter, because there's 3 on the kit. Now this was before the Storm Hawk Interceptor was released, so this was just when the Storm Talon was only the Storm Talon. So yeah, now there is also a little bit on the Necrons. Now the release of this was interesting because this had come out the month after the Necron codex, so the Necrons got the rules for their flyer just before the flyer got released, whereas neither the Orcs nor the Space Marines had got the rules for these in their codex, because the codexes were released way earlier in the edition. And I mean, this happened the month before 6th edition dropped. Yeah, so there's also a little bit on Age of Sigmar talking about Orcs and Goblins on page 83. There's an editorial which, yeah, that looks like he's mainly talking about the new aircraft. So yeah, there was quite a fair bit about the Storm Talon in this one. Now the part that I actually really like is the kind of tactical scan down of it. Not such a fan of it being an Ultramarines livery, but yeah, what do you do? GW paint everything as Ultramarines these days. Gone are the days where other chapters featured on the codexes. So yeah, back then it was a 2-sprue kit, whereas now it's, come on, how many sprues was it when I built the Storm Talon earlier on? I've got a Storm Talon partially built, and it'll appear on the channel when I can get it finished. And I also kind of lost half the footage of the lost all the footage prior to building it because of a technical issue. Now the footage may be recovered, which may delay when I actually upload the video on this thing. But yeah, that will be coming, and I may well put a link in this video towards it. But yeah, the Storm Talon was a neat little fighter. When it dropped, I made use of the rules for it and actually ran a scratch built thing. I wouldn't call it a proper gunship. It was kind of a drone fighter thing that didn't look very good. It was meant to kind of act as a proxy, and it was a mediocre effort proxy at best. Still, it did its job for the few games that I ran it, and it gave my army some air support. But yes, next one's talking about the Dakar Jet, Blitzer Bomber, and Burner Bomber, because the Orcs love to have 3 variants of the same thing, or 2 variants of the same thing. So yeah, like the Orc kit is neat. I've never actually faced one on the tabletop. I've had the either fortune or misfortune of not facing Orcs since 5th edition. The last time I faced off against Orcs was in $5 Friday games. So my main memory of fighting Orcs was biker knobs being horrible at a 750 point game level. Then we have the Necron Doom Scythe and Night Scythe, which I one day will end up fighting. I wouldn't mind fighting them, but yeah, it's a neat kit. I don't have it, and I haven't had the chance to look at it in person in a long time. There's also a painting guide on how to paint this up as Ultramarines. It'd be nice if they provided a paint guide on other chapters as well. Not necessarily the more common ones, some of the more interesting ones, like even just the Imperial Fists and so on. There's also them plugging their paints and their paint gun. Now, the Battle of Cardrum was essentially a 3-way campaign that was initially Orcs versus... something else fell down. Was initially Orcs versus Space versus White Scars. And then the Necrons showed up. And I will eventually get around to doing a proper thing on the Battle of Kadroom, which will probably happen when I talk about the Death from the Skies book, which dropped the following year to this. At least I think it did. Yeah, there's talk of massacres and show off of a whole lot of additional forces. That fighter is screwed. There's Orcs versus Space Marines, and that's just the contents of Black Reach with flyers in the background. That's also the contents of Black Reach, but also, well, Black Reach plus Necron codex stuff plus Tactical Squad in the background. We have Black Reach Tactical Squad, Black Reach Dreadnought, Black Reach Captain, Black Reach Terminators, Tactical Squad, Rhino, more Tacticals, and a full bike squad, because you can't have a White Scars army without bikes, and the Storm Talon. Now, I am going to breeze over this, because in the event this issue gets put onto Warhammer Plus, I would advocate reading it. And then there's this neat little mission that they provide in there of where forces are scrambling to, a defender essentially is scrambling to get their forces in the air. We see Duncan Rhodes taking on the Imperial Guard, and Andy and Chad fighting. Huh, GW have a Chad. Nice. Then we see the fighters in a really neat piece of art that's used for armies on parade. Then we have some of the other flyers that dropped before this point. So the Imperial Guard got the Valkyrie, which at the time had the rules for you to run it as a vendetta. That would later get dropped because GW don't make the vendetta, Forge World do, and GW didn't think, let's put the parts for the vendetta on the Valkyrie sprue, or, you know, release them ourselves. Because I know Guard players would buy them. Come on, a gunship flying around with three sets of twin-linked las cannons. Is gonna go down well with Guard players. The Storm Raven gunship and the Dark Eldar Razor Wing jet fighter. The Storm Raven gunship I have faced many times, and it is brutal. The Dark Eldar one I've not faced at all, because I've had the fortune of not fighting Dark Eldar very much. And wow, I've talked so long that I've mainly talked about that stuff. So, there's how to paint it up in that clan. There's a standard bearer where he talks about the hobby gene. There's rules from 5th edition, so this is before vehicles had hull points and back when vehicles were vehicles. There's a little black library segment. There's an armies on parade that shows some gorgeous models. That Land Raider is gorgeous. They did so well. Then we have a Forge World product placement, and this whole magazine's product placement, let's be real. Warhammer Fantasy Orc stuff. We have a Finecast advert. So glad I dodged that bullet. We have some Orcs, which had some skin painting tutorials. We have some Goblins. We have Citadel Finecast again. We have Golden Demon Empire stuff. We have the Chapter House thing, which was neat. And then we have the kind of stores, and remember when Games Workshop did events in Australia? But yes, there's kind of not much else really to show in there. It's just art and then saying that they're doing Golden Demon in 2012. I miss when GW did events in Australia. I didn't have the money to go to them back then. Anyway, since there's not really much else to this White Dwarf, I think I'll sign off here. So yeah, it's a neat copy. If you manage to find a physical copy of it, I'd say grab it. Otherwise, if it's uploaded onto Warhammer Plus, go for it. I'd say read it. It's a good copy. That being said, it is relatively light. It's mainly focused around the flyers. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. I will be back with more stuff soon. Anyway, thanks.